Are you willing to go first?
Steve, my answer to that question completely and totally depends on what we're doing. If we're talking about jumping like cliff diving, not a chance. No way I'm willing to go first.
What if you were a penguin?
No way. I don't ever want to be the first penguin.
You don't want to be the first penguin.
No,
Do you know about the first
penguin's
penguin?
A snack. The first penguin's a snack, and I don't mean that the cool way that the kids talk about being a snack.
I don't think it's always true. I mean, if the second penguin jumps in right after and you're smarter and faster than the second penguin, maybe you survive.
I don't know. You're just to me, if you're the first penguin, you're a sitting duck.
Wouldn't you be
penguins?
Wouldn't you be a dead penguin rather than a sitting duck?
Well, yeah, but I don't want to be a dead penguin.
I don't either. So when I ask, are you willing to do? What was the question? What did I ask?
Are you willing to go first?
I'm just thinking of penguins in the water and wondering if I would be the first penguin.
Bird parts floating all over the Antarctic Ocean. Are you willing to go first?
Are you willing to go first? What are we going to talk about?
Well, there's a lot of angst that can go along with being first. And this is one of those, this is actually a big challenge for parents, because when we look at, I mean, there's a saying that I like. It's you can't preach broccoli with a mouthful of Oreos. Right?
Oh, so you're talking about modeling here,
yes.
Being an example,
being the one that goes
parents
first.
Are on stage 24/7, 365.
That's part of why it's the hardest job, and there's not a close second, is that because of that fact, you always have to be conscious of the fact that you need to go first. Your kids are going to cut like emotional resilience, and there's all the research shows this. Kids learn their emotional resilience skills from watching their parents. That's where it comes from. That's the number one way. If kids have parents that are emotionally resilient and emotionally intelligent, that's how they show up. But if their parents struggle with emotional intelligence, then they become the kids that, and it doesn't mean that all kids that have issues with that have parents that have issues with that. But that's our number one source of learning when it comes to how we regulate our emotions, is watching our parents. And so the question gets at this idea: are you, as the parent, willing to do some of these things that you're asking your kids to do first?
And I think it goes well beyond to just regulating your emotions. This goes into the whole world of your habits, your attitudes.
Right. Your productivity habits, how you manage your time, how you communicate to your spouse, how you deal with adversity. All of these things are modeled first.
So the question we're asking is, parents, are you willing to go first?
Yep. Are you willing to be that person? Because teens, they sniff out inauthenticity like a bloodhound at a barbecue. And they're really good at picking up on people that aren't authentic, that they call them hypocritical. They're telling them to do one thing and they do something different. Like you know this as a coach, you had to be on point all the time because your team caught what you brought.
Sure. I mean, if you want to go nerdy, which you always want to go nerdy.
Always.
They're pretty much in data collection mode. Have you noticed that? They are always collecting data on you and what you say, what you do. You know this. We've talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in front of a group of teens and you make a mistake, a mispronunciation, or
spelling a word wrong on the board.
Yeah. They let you know about it.
Mm-hmm. They sniff that right out. And whether they talk about it or not, we've talked about silent contracts and stuff before, whether they bring it up and say anything about it, they're paying attention. Yeah, they're always in data collection mode. And that's a holdover psychologically. It's a holdover for when they're babies because we're just information collecting machines. We don't change as humans. We're always information collecting machines. And teens seem to have a really heightened ability to pick up on things like inauthenticity or hypocrisy. So are you willing to go first?
I think so. I hope so. I hope I have.
Yeah. Well, you and I we have a unique perspective on this because we've already gone first. My youngest is 19. And so a lot of the modeling on my end's done as far as those teen moments go. Now I'm still on display. Like I still,
Yeah.
that's how I like to try to approach it. But that's one of the most important things our parents can get out of this conversation as they listen to this is what are you modeling for your kids? What are you showing that you're willing to do first? If we run a scenario, you got a motivated athlete, a young person that's really motivated, maybe let's say a swimmer, and they want to be good. They want to be really good. And so they get in there and they start trying to do this, but their parents put in inconsistent effort in a lot of areas in their lives. And so when the teen tries to work hard, they don't necessarily know how to work hard. So they end up working inconsistent because that's what they've seen. And so instead of the parents freaking out on the teen, they look in the mirror, they talk to each other and they're like, what could we do to show what consistent hard work looks like? And so the dad starts a consistent workout plan. It doesn't necessarily make a big deal out of it, but every morning at 6 o'clock, dad's going for a run, going to the gym. And it leads to the teen now understands a little bit better about how to consistently show up and work hard.
I wonder if there's a behavior that happens in the stands. I wonder if it has been passed on from generation to generation, and that is just some of the poor behavior from a parent, usually yelling at officials is usually the most common example of that. Imagine a parent who does this and has probably been told to not do this, maybe even by the teen, maybe even by the spouse, maybe even by a coach, somebody else. Imagine the shift that would take place, the transformation that would take place if that parent decided to intentionally get help, work on themselves, do whatever it takes to, I'm going to be the parent that goes in the stands and supports my kid rather than going in the stands and just yelling at the officials, yelling at the refs. And because if I'm putting 2 and 2 together, you're saying that the teens are learning from how the parents regulate their emotions. And so this would be a step up for the parent. This would be going first. This would be a tough jump too, because it's probably a habit. And this is penguin adults, first here. This would be tough.
Our habits are so much more entrenched as the adult. And so changing the way that we respond to a negative situation emotionally can be a bigger challenge for us than it will be for our kids. And so they're going to see us struggle, but it sets up some critical conversations where they now know what to do if they're struggling with the same thing. They're having a hard time making a change. It's like, well, I've seen my dad struggle with this, and I know that I can talk to him about it because he talks to me about his struggles. And it helps so much when we model that change.
What a great lesson for a teen too, if they have watched their mom or dad do this for a number of years. Because my guess is this started earlier. It was probably happening in youth sports before they got to high school. Imagine the lesson learned for this teen if they saw their mom or their dad learning how to control this. And it would probably translate to better performance for the teen, sure. I would think.
I absolutely think
I don't know if you can guarantee that, but that teen, I can just imagine, because I have talked to teens. I have talked to some of my former players that have talked about their moms or dads. It's usually the dads. They've talked about their moms and their dads in a negative light because they're so worried about their behavior at the game. And they know it's inappropriate and they wish they wouldn't do it. They've got enough to think about, Coach.
They do.
They've got enough to think about out there on the playing surface that they don't need that extra pressure and that extra stress.
Yeah. I want to throw out something that I think really ups the value of this, being able to do this for parents, this idea of going first. If you're willing to go first and your kids see you go first and you have communication with them, when they are now trying to follow in some area, you now have the credibility to sit down with them and say, I know how hard this is to change. And they know you're not blowing smoke. You get past that inauthenticity detector. And on the other side of that is the authenticity detector, which now they trust you exponentially more. And you can say to them, I know how hard it is to change. And they believe it because they've seen you do it. And they will listen to you so much more as you coach them through the process of making those tough changes. Can I take it in a slightly even different direction?
Once again, asking for permission. One of the co-hosts of the Stop Parenting, Start Coaching podcast is asking for permission to go in another direction. You know what, though, Nate? While you're gathering your thoughts on that, I want to give permission to our listeners to subscribe to the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast channel. It's the name of our channel, is the name of our podcast. Anyway, new episodes every Monday. Okay, what were you going to say?
So we're the Stop Parenting, Start Coaching podcast, right? And that means shifting our mindset about our role as a parent, taking on more of that role of coach where we're listening, asking great questions, and then working with our teens on their response. As a parent, am I willing to get coached? Because that's one of the things that we as parents have to be willing to go first. Are my kids seeing me get coached by somebody and seeing how I respond to that coach? Because if we're going to take that approach with our teens and we're going to talk to them and we're going to ask them questions and we're going to interact and we're going to work together to help them move forward, are they seeing me connect with somebody who's coaching me? And this could be a spouse. You could coach each other. You could go get a coach. You could bring a high performance coach in if you wanted to go that route. But are your kids seeing you being open to getting coaching and responding well to the coaching you're getting?
Beautifully said. Over 30 plus years of working with athletes and teens, I've noticed there's two things that tend to get in the way of coaching. One is sometimes ignorance. Sometimes you just don't know. And you and I talk about this. We're in that situation. There's things we just don't know. And you could use some help, some coaching on that. And then sometimes it's not ignorance, but sometimes it's arrogance. Sometimes it's, I don't need this. I don't need a coach. And sometimes, every time when that happens, if you are a coach, that's a frustrating situation because you're never going to quite mesh. So as a parent, if you can show to your teen, for example, you brought up the personal training thing. Maybe somebody's in that situation and so they go get some personal training to improve their fitness. Yeah. Or maybe somebody's improving their public speaking, or maybe somebody is going to, I lived in the world of triathlon for a while and I got coaching on that. And that was so helpful. So if your teen sees you getting a coach or getting coaching, getting help, then they're going to be so much more open to you helping them and making that shift from parenting to coaching.
Yeah, it's our willingness to go first. Are we willing to be the learner? to jump into the unknown and learn something. And that means the scary thing for me, I brought up cliff diving. I'm terrified of jumping off of cliffs. Are we terrified as parents of our kids looking at us as somebody that doesn't know everything? Do we feel like we have to maintain that mask of, well, I know everything?
Well, sometimes aren't we all putting on that mask?
Mm-hmm.
You're too young to remember Cheers. Do you
No,
remember
I'm not.
Cheers, the TV show Cheers?
Totally remember Cheers.
Do you remember Cliff Clavin?
Loved Cliff Clavin.
The postman?
Uh-huh.
Cliff Clavin knew something about everything and just always had to let everybody know that he knew. Yeah, you can't be a Cliff Clavin. Yeah. Even though sometimes it's interesting.
And you might know some stuff about some things, but nobody knows stuff about everything. Nobody knows everything. Are your kids seeing you model the humility that you're asking them to model? We want them to come to us with their questions and their problems. Do they see me taking my questions and problems to somebody else?
Yeah.
Kids feel a ton of pressure to feel like they have it all together. They think that's what being an adult is all about, is knowing all the answers. And so as they grow, like this year, particularly my classes have all been seniors. And there's a lot of discomfort that they feel because they feel like at this point in their life, they're right there being an adults and they need to know everything. And we as parents often perpetuate that problem by trying to maintain this image that we do know everything.
Even though we know it's the truth is that teenagers know everything.
But that's so much of them putting that on is because they feel like that's what it means to be grown up.
So they have it all figured out.
I have it all figured out. And some of that's, the teenage rebellion thing, but some of that is them striving to be more like what they perceive their parents are. My dad knows everything. I want to be like my dad. I want to emulate him. So I have to know everything. And so I'm going to act like I know everything. And I'm going to prove to everybody that I do. Just some interesting perspective there. Like, obviously that doesn't apply to every case, but as parents, having multiple perspectives is incredibly valuable.
Yeah. Let's finish up with 2 practical tips. Or questions. I have a question for.
Go for it. I'll probably bring a question too.
And if you're in a situation with a spouse, this works great. If you're a single parent, this is still something that you can bounce off of somebody else. But I think a great question to ask is, what do you see me modeling well? So this could be any type of habit. And in our high performance coaching, Nate, we deal with 6 really specific habits that I'm not going to go into here, but this could be any type of behavior that you are modeling well. It could be a habit, it could be the way you communicate, it could be a morning routine. It could be so many things. What am I doing well? And then where can I step up? So where could I go be first penguin? And this is going to be a mutually beneficial thing. This is going to be what we talked about in a previous episode. This could be a win-win-win.
The triple win.
Yeah, where you are upping your game. You help your teen see you up your game. And you bless all the lives around you by doing so.
Yep. My question kind of fits in similar. It's more of a quick line of questioning. What's a change you'd love to see your teen make? Where can you model that change the best? If I want my teen to be more disciplined, maybe my morning routine becomes more disciplined. And you develop the credibility to have some of those conversations. And even if you never say anything, just the fact that I'm leveling up my discipline invites my teen to do the same thing. So ask the question, where do you want your teen to step up and make some changes? And then where can you step up and make some changes to show them how to do that?
Fantastic. I love that. So, Nate, I'm going to finish up by telling the parents that they should go ahead and be the first penguin. This whole idea of becoming shark food is very, very unlikely. Go be the first penguin.
Nate Crandall and Steve Gallen would like to thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you love what you're experiencing and learning from the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast, please like, comment, and or leave a glowing review of this episode and the show. And to further help Nate and Steve expand their reach and impact thousands of parents, athletes, and performers, please share the show and subscribe to the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast channel on YouTube. And if you want to explore further to see what Nate and Steve are creating to help parents of athletes and performers everywhere, please visit their website at createtransformbecome.com. That's createtransformbecome, all one word, .com. There you will find a growing number of tools and resources to help you elevate your parenting. Thanks again for tuning in. Now go create a magical relationship with your athlete or performer.